Hello, everyone, and welcome to I'm a Perfectionist, Get Me Out of Here, where we are all allowed to be perfectly imperfect. I'm really excited to introduce you my guest this week, who is a Wall Street Journal bestselling author, Ambro Blackwell. And his book, Small Business Loans Made Simple, has been just doing absolutely amazing. And if you are a small business owner, this is definitely the place to be for you in this episode. So, are you ready? Hello, Ambro. Hello, and welcome to my podcast. I'm really honored to have you here, and thank you for your
Awesome. I'm glad to be
time.
here. Thank you so much for having me as your guest.
It's an honor. Thank you so much for coming today. Um, we will be talking a little bit about perfectionism and how that's been affecting you, if at all, or how you actually look at life and how you have learned these things. Shall we look at a bit of history? I know that you have this Wall Street Journal bestseller book, Small Business Loans Made Simple, and I'd like to talk a bit about that as well with you. But what is the history that brought you to where you are?
It's really, I would say, just pushing for a higher level of excellence, wanting to be the best, wanting to make sure that it's definitive by any chance possible. And I mean, yeah, I mean, I can see many traits from, childhood to now.
Hmm. And when in your childhood, how did you learn to go for those high standards?
Well, a lot of it started with my mother.
Yeah.
Also sports. My mom always, taught me to be the best. Before she even knew the English language, she was telling us that we're going to go to college. We're going to college. Focus on going to college. When a lot of us growing up, college wasn't even a thought that could be a possibility.
Wow.
But for myself, also sports is one of the easiest things because always wanted to be the champion. I didn't care if it was little league sports, high school sports, college sports, or anything else in between.
Mhm.
And to be the best, you have to put forth everything. You don't want to cut corners because when you cut corners each season, you realize that you probably shorted yourself. So the standards were always extremely high.
Mm. And how did you take it when those standards occasionally were not met by yourself?
Sometimes it was punishment, self-induced punishment. Less wanting to hang out, less wanting to do other things. There was a time when I was real young where grades, could have been a problem.
Mm.
And I remember, I'll never forget, it was, we had progress report time and I was in jeopardy of not being able to play if I didn't have my grades high enough. And within that same quarter, I ended up on honor roll. And so, because the fear of not being able to play was going to hold me back, I literally took all my books home, literally every single day to make sure I had no excuse, to make sure that I was able to study. And so it was really just pushing the envelope as far as I could to make sure that there was no chance that I didn't leave anything on the table.
Well, that's amazing. It really is. And then how did you experience as the years went by? How did you experience this high level standards?
Well, it translated. I mean, once you see success and success doesn't always guarantee.
No.
There is a thing, called failure. There is a thing such as where you may not end up being number one. Maybe you're number two, maybe you're number three,
Mhm.
but that has always been the goal. It's always been the goal. It's always been, what I've strived for. I've always been harder on myself. Whether it's sports, I could always brag and tell other people that I won, but I couldn't tell the one or two people in front of me. So that always was an opportunity to give me motivation. And I translate it into everything else, whether it's business, whether it's work ethic. It's always doing everything I can, finding something or one thing or another that will be able to give me an edge.
Mhm. And I understand that it has taken you quite far. You have been in finance business for many years, and
Absolutely.
I understand that you were working as a lender to start with,
Mhm.
and I think you are a vice president at JP Morgan Chase
Right.
now. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that journey?
Well, it's interesting. I went to school. I was a student athlete, as a high school student that fell in love with accounting. Probably one of the few people that loved accounting.
Mm.
Um, but growing up, not having the most means, we weren't deprived or anything like that. Accounting was something I realized was something that could serve me well in the future for business, going into business, things of that nature.
Mhm.
So, when I went to school, started playing sports, I kind of drifted thinking I might want to do something different from accounting. And I ended up circling right back to it. And so, having said that, um, for me, I thought of accounting as something that would allow me to have a stable career and after sports. I didn't expect I was going to go, play professionally, even though that was something that was always a goal. But again, things happen like injuries, things of that nature.
Mhm.
And so navigating back over to the work field, with my accounting degree, I ended up taking one of the first jobs I can get out of college that would pay me the most to, allow me to pay bills and things of that nature. And I ended up finding myself in the opportunity to do financing, but in this case, it was home lending. And so with the home lending, that came a point and a place where I noticed so many people started becoming home lenders. So the market, the ability to, control as much clients as possible was starting to diminish a little bit. So, I had a pivot, and my pivot was looking for business owners, finding ways to help them tap into equity of their homes, help them start businesses, helping them in that manner. And that was a point of differentiation. Then I relied back on my accounting friends, my accounting network, CPA network, to help find some of those people, in terms of building alliances. And that was one of the things that college taught me a lot, was how to connect with different people, regardless of gender or race and things of that nature, build bridges, work together, study together, things of that nature. So I translated that over into, to the real world. With that having said, that allowed me to have a pathway to go into commercial lending, which was, focusing on business. So from there, I mirrored my passion for business, my passion for competition, in this case, sales, as well as the, accounting background. And it was a perfect marriage, where it allowed me to help deal with and work with building relationships, sales, things of that nature. And I've pretty much stayed in that capacity for almost the last 20 years. And so that led me to, pushing myself further, which was, where the book came into place.
Yes, and amazing small business loans made simple. And it's also insider secrets and strategies for established businesses.
Absolutely.
Uh, so are they, for example, people like me, I am running a small business with, two people, and up to, what would you call a small business? Up to how many people? Um,
Well, it varies. Some of it comes down to the volume of revenue.
mhm.
You can be a
Yeah,
$50 million business and still be considered a small business. And
yeah.
for most people, earning 50 million a year sets up a really nice legacy for you and your family.
That's right. That's right. So how did you come about? When did you decide, you know what, I should write this book and help people to take their business to next level?
Well, I was inspired by a gentleman by the name of Paul Walker, not the actor, but Paul Walker in Orange County. I remember going to an event, somewhat of a networking event amongst vice presidents. You had vice presidents from various different emerging market businesses, smaller businesses to large businesses that 300 million in revenue and things of that nature. And this gentleman had a book on his table, and I went over to congratulate him and thank him for, just support him with, I'd never seen anyone that had a book before. And so having said that, he just, pulled me by the side and said, hey, this is, one of the things that, I do to help, share my thought leadership.
Mhm.
And then I started thinking, well, I don't think anyone's done this in the finance space when it comes to small and medium-sized businesses. So that was a seed, but I didn't know where to go, where to start, things of that nature. So I started studying, started connecting with people, learning from them, reading books, attending, organizations like Rick Frischman has a really great one that's dedicated to authors. And so that kind of stuck with me for a moment.
Mm.
And I'd say back in around 2016, I had a little bit more time on my hands. And I started thinking, this is the time to go ahead and do it. If there's a time, I'm going to start writing it. And so, leading up to all those years, and even after that, I attended so many access to capital events, so many different business seminars, things of that nature. And I was a little frustrated from the standpoint of that no matter how much we had these events, I felt like the audience, the listener, or in this case the reader, didn't have enough information. You can only jam pack so much that impacts the life cycle and the lifestyle and the business of a business owner in a 30-minute to 2-hour segment, especially something that can be a little more tailored.
Mhm.
So that's where it was birthed between those two things is, how can I do something that I think will get people 80, 90% of the way? Because there's always some things that, like I said, sometimes you don't come in first place, maybe second or third, um, that will allow the majority of business owners that followed to have a blueprint, a roadmap, a pathway to get to a place where they can have a more favorable outcome when it comes to getting financing for their business.
Mhm. Yeah, amazing. And so how long in total did you spend until you were thinking, okay, I can let this go now? It's we were just before we were talking about how long it has taken me to let go of my book, which is hopefully now going to be published in August. That's the plan of the publishers. And I just wonder, it took me, I finished it December 2021. And I just wonder how long it took you for it to be okay, it can go now.
Well, it's so funny because I actually rewrote the book a couple times. And I wrote it originally and I was doing it in pieces and I had ideas. I had I took a course that would kind of help you to write it.
Yeah.
And it was frustrating the heck out of me because I would write in pieces, take 7 minutes to start, and then it would take you to the next step. And I'm thinking, I just got started flowing, in
Yeah.
my thought pattern. So I did that. I decided to, I was doing some traveling and speaking and things of that nature. That was kind of interrupting things. Eventually, I just went back and said, okay, I'm just going to focus on writing, about an hour a day or whatever. And so I actually started writing 2 books. The second book will come out probably late 2024. Um, but I decided to go ahead and actually start writing. And I'm thinking, if I'm going to write and I'm going to speak to you, the business owner, you've been in business, you're either someone who's starting in business, who's still relatively young. And in the industry, typically that's less than 3 years. And then over 3 years, you're considered to be a more mature business. Not necessarily doesn't mean that you're the same business that's been around for 30, 40 years, but you've seen a trend. You've been able to kind of determine if this business is accelerating or if it's declining.
Yeah.
And so I decided to go ahead and write it. I'd say probably the equivalent of writing, the majority of it was probably the equivalent of taking a full weekend, because this is pulling from, my opinion, my thoughts, my perspectives, of seeing hundreds, thousands of, businesses that, have been able to get it done right, and those that, weren't able to get it done. And so there's a little bit of that I go into. Um, so that was really easy for me. The hardest part was really the perfectionism of making sure I actually have it right. Making sure that I've got little updates, things of that nature,
Yeah.
trying to check up on certain things. Like, for example, uh, the industry would use a form called a 4506T, which is the tax transcripts to verify that the taxes that you provide a lender are accurate. But then it changed to the 4506C. So I'm like, okay, well, let me go into update because I don't want someone to be able to say that, this is outdated, and so that's the perfectionism of it
Yeah.
because, once you complete your book, it's as of that moment, and that's why I say 80, 90%. But I think that, the ability to build a team, the ability to articulate, what you're doing, as a business owner and be able to, work with that team will help put most people in a really great position to get financing. I've seen it where it wasn't, the first time around, but it was the second time around, and so, business is a team sport.
Yeah, absolutely. And we are grateful for this book as business owners because it's time saver and life saver, right? So you have put a lot of things there that will save people a lot of time. So
There's a lot of time. Not only that, but it's the countless number of businesses that have gone out of business
mm,
because they didn't get access to capital. And there's so many components to it. That could be your credit that is damaged because you've got debts that you maybe need to pay that you took loans out on that maybe you shouldn't have, or maybe could have got a better financing, or because you didn't get financing,
mm,
you weren't able to meet payroll timely because now maybe the employee is able to sue you because you haven't paid them according. There's all kinds of things that come back in to add to the stress levels, which impact the health, which impact families, impact communities. That was really the love letter, if you want to call it, to the small business owner.
yeah,
I've
absolutely.
learned so much from businesses, and opportunities to be able to assist them in, industries from everything from construction to medical. Um, and
Yeah.
so, and now I'm working, on trying to get it in multiple languages. So Spanish is done
Oh,
now.
wow. Amazing. Yes, I
Absolutely.
remember 7 or 9 languages it's being translated to, I think.
Yes, yes. It's finished editing in Spanish. So, there's a whole nother component of just releasing the book versus just printing out some words.
Yes,
But
so
I
no
want to make
excuse.
sure, that everyone has an opportunity to be able to understand and take this information, regardless of gender, race, dialect, ethnicity, language. If
Mm.
I can do so, I want to make sure everyone has access to be able to put themselves in position to get capital for their business.
Yeah, it's amazing. We're really grateful for you writing this book, and I'm sure many of our audience will go, because we have quite many business owners, entrepreneur
Absolutely.
ladies, as well
Absolutely.
as gentlemen, as our audience, and I'm sure they will appreciate that. Go out and buy Small Business Loans Made Simple by Ambro Blackwell, and you will never look back again, and it will definitely take your business to the next level. Just going back to talking about perfectionism,
Mhm.
Ambro, I just wonder how, we talked about how you always went for the highest standards and just going for succeeding. And sometimes it was okay to be number 2, number 3, but you always went for the highest standards. And it has really taken you so far. I just wonder when you occasionally don't get to where you want to be, or when you occasionally fail, you go for something and it doesn't work. How do you take that? How did you used to take it, or have you changed your ways, or how do you take it now?
It's interesting because that's why I love sports as well so much. There's a lot of lessons that you can learn on your pursuit to greatness. Um, and that's exactly what I look at it. I've branded in my mind not to look at loss as that word loss. I look at it as lessons. Every time someone says no, every time you don't make it number one, so to speak, what lessons did you learn? Was it that you procrastinated? Was it that you didn't get proper rest dieting? Was it that you really didn't give it all? Was it timing? There's a lot of things that come into place, with, being number one. And, I also subscribe to the idea of being content but never satisfied. So the fact that if I am number two, you're pretty darn good. But the strive is always going to be the number one. There's human element, like I said, using sports as one analogy, you might be fighting through injuries. And
Mhm.
that's something that
Yeah,
you may not have just been able to control. So that's realizing that in the pursuit for perfectionism that you're not perfect,
yeah,
but I don't know who said it, but you're perfectly imperfect. So
that's
it's not an excuse, and I don't allow it to hold me back from seeking to be the best. But I also allow those lessons to allow me to learn and to continue to rinse, repeat, and come back, hopefully, much better.
yeah, and that is really the healthy way to strive for success, isn't it? Because the unhealthy way, when you are a perfectionist, which is the unhealthy way of going for things, then you beat yourself up a lot. You keep overthinking about the event. Should I have done this? Should I have done that? Why didn't I do this? Why didn't I do that? And beat yourself up, criticize yourself horribly, put yourself down, call yourself words, and that is the unhealthy way. And what we are really going for is the way you are doing it. Okay, what did I learn from this? What can I do differently? That's going to help me next time rather than beating yourself up. What was the lesson from this? That's amazing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you're still friends with yourself. You're still kind to yourself, accepting that you are perfectly imperfect.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Amazing. And do you find that that people around you are being affected with your um striving for number one?
Absolutely. And your environment is something you also always have to be keen, of, and have top of mind awareness. And so, you rub off on each other. I'm always really big on making sure that I minimize and keep only those that are looking to soar high. Those are always looking to aim more in their own respective way. I might be, in thought leadership or business or finance or banking. The next person might be in construction, or it might be in sports or anything else. But there's parallels. There's greatness in all kinds of different industries, genres, and things of that nature. And so, seeing someone else, push and excel for excellence helps keep me motivated at the same time. So there's a little bit of iron sharpening iron.
Mhm.
And depending on what I see happening in those that are closest to me and those that come into my circle, because you're always meeting new people and things of that nature, I'm evaluating that. I'm evaluating, are they the type of person that I would want and that's good for me and my environment and my psyche and my mindset and things of that nature. So
Yeah.
it's very important. But yes, absolutely. After I published my book, I've had many friends that, said, hey, I think I want to go ahead and publish, a book. And so,
Mhm.
obviously gladly have showed them my steps and things that they can do, and they'll be off to the races.
Mm, amazing, amazing. And in your private life, how do you uh, h- how do you go for that success? You know, the mindset. How does that affect your private life?
Well, I don't think you can, I think you have to do your best. And that's where communication comes in.
Yeah.
There's sacrifices that are going to be made. I have not seen anyone um, that's made it to the mountaintop, so to speak, that did not have a little bit of people who have not been affected by it.
Mm,
But that's where, I like to look at, life in moments as well. And you have to cherish the moments that you have, because everyone has to be striving, for their best. And that's going to require sometimes you as the person, having to, suffer a little bit. And maybe those family, friends, loved ones, they may have to suffer a little bit, but hopefully in the end, they understand and they're supportive of what it's going to take and what you're doing to reach the mountaintop or be the best.
yeah, and helping you, supporting you to bring your best self to the world
Absolutely.
and give your best self to the world. Yes, so that everyone can enjoy your book and the one to come as well. We are looking forward to that one too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Ambro. I really appreciate your time, and we all appreciate your wise words too.
Thank you.
Any last comments before you go? Anything that I may not have covered that you would like us to cover today?
No, I would just say that, to continue to strive to be the best. Don't beat yourself up. Make sure that you've got a good team. That's one of the things I talk about obviously in the book, but this is just in personal life. Regardless, and it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And just know that your win is coming.
Yeah, that is so good. So good. Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Ambro.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you so much for your time.
No worries. My pleasure.
Thank you for joining us in I'm a Perfectionist, Get Me Out of Here podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please do leave stars and a review. Help me spread the word by sharing this with your friends and family. My practical manual, Transformation Through the Power of Quotes, will help you or someone you know get through tough times and feel happier. It is now available on Amazon paperback and Kindle. You can also check out our website, mindandmood.co.uk. Thank you again, and remember, imperfect action is better than perfect inaction. Bye for now.